Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Between Bells and Cheddar News. I'm Baker Machado in New York, and the campaign to end qualified immunity is aiming to put pressure on lawmakers in Congress to end qualified immunity, all while educating people by sharing stories of those impacted by public servants. The campaign is made up of top business leaders, artists, athletes, and advocates, all dedicated to the cause. And there are also two familiar names who are co-chairing the campaign to end qualified immunity, Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, but you might know them best as Ben and Jerry of Ben and Jerry's Ice Cream. So joining us now is Jerry Greenfield of Ben and Jerry. Jerry, great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us here on Cheddar News. So explain to our viewers just a little bit about how qualified immunity works here and why was this important for you guys to be a part of?
Great. So first of all, thanks to be here. Qualified immunity is essentially a get out of jail free card for bad cops. So it is a legal doctrine that was put into place by the Supreme Court. And what it does is it shields police officers from accountability when they violate somebody's civil or constitutional rights. And the result of that is that there's no accountability for police, and at the same time, there's no justice for the victims of those police. And so, as you mentioned, there's a campaign, the campaign to end qualified immunity, that is working to overturn qualified immunity, both at the federal level and at state levels.
So why was this important, Jerry, for you and your partner Ben to be a part of this?
So after the murder of George Floyd, I think we saw people protesting, not just in this country, but around the world. We saw business and corporate leaders speaking out as never before. And we saw ending qualified immunity as a way to turn protest into policy. Ending qualified immunity is not going to solve all our issues with police reform or racial inequality, but it's a very important thing that we can accomplish.
And it's interesting because in the negotiations between Tim Scott, the Republican senator, and Cory Booker and Karen Bass from the Democratic side, qualified immunity, it seems like it's almost like this red line that is really difficult in terms of the negotiations of getting police reform passed. How difficult do you think it is going to be at the end of the day that it is included in there? Do you think it will be included at the end of the day? And what would happen then?
It will be included if enough people get in touch with their senators and congresspeople to make sure that it happens. You know, the majority of Americans want to get rid of qualified immunity. We need our representatives to listen to that. You mentioned our campaign. It is a broad coalition that includes about 24 national advocacy groups that range from the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the ACLU, all the way to libertarian groups like the Institute for Justice and Cato Institute. So it is moderates, libertarians, liberals, progressives, conservatives. The only people that are fighting against this are the police unions who want to protect their members at all costs.
And the thing I guess that doesn't make a lot of sense is, wouldn't you think bad police officers would want good police officers would want the bad police officers out? Why do you think police unions at the end of the day are sticking so much behind qualified immunity here?
You know, I think it's an error in judgment. Clearly we have a crisis in law enforcement and policing because there's a breakdown in trust between communities that police serve and those police, particularly in Black and brown communities. And to have those bad police doesn't serve anybody. And at the same time, good police have very strong constitutional protections. They don't need qualified immunity. I honestly don't understand the Fraternal Order of Police and why they're so dead set against this.
You actually went up to Albany, Jerry, and you stood and advocated with families to fight for police accountability here. Your partner, Ben, also wrote a book called Above the Law, How Qualified Immunity Protects Violent Police. And actually, on the anniversary of George Floyd's murder, you guys hand-delivered copies to every member of the Senate. What was their reaction when you guys gave them copies of this book?
It's funny because a lot of senators don't want to talk about it. There are these negotiations that, as you mentioned, are going on behind closed doors with Tim Scott and Cory Booker. And I think they've been given kind of instructions not to talk about it publicly as they try to negotiate about it. And we need people to get in touch with their Congress people. We need people to get on the phone. You don't have to be an expert. You just call up the message board at Congress and tell them you want to end qualified immunity, and that message gets across to your representatives.
Jerry, Mitch McConnell famously, a few months ago, when the voter suppression efforts were starting in a bunch of these states, he basically told business leaders, back out of politics. This is not your job. This is our job. And for some businesses, it looks bad depending on what sort of stances they take. Why has it always been important for you and your company, alongside with Ben Cohen, to really take a stand on issues that are really important to you guys?
Business is essentially the most powerful force in our country. And when you look at all the lobbyists in Washington, 90% of them are paid for by business. And if we are going to have justice and equality in this country, business and business leaders need to stand up and talk about it. Mitch McConnell he's not exactly interested in justice and equality. I don't think that's number one on his list.
Jerry Greenfield from Ben & Jerry's, also one of the co-chairs of the campaign to end qualified immunity. Jerry, such a pleasure to have you here on Cheddar News. Thank you so much for joining us.